Next session, and we're going to explore how Adept Advisory strengthens its cyber resilience with Integrity 360's CyberFire MDR service. So to talk about this, I want to welcome on stage Martin Potgieter and Christian Roos. Martin Potgieter, as I mentioned earlier, we've done lots of conferences together, as the co-founder and technical director of Enclose. Passion for cybersecurity dating back to 1999. And Martin really has that sharp eye for identifying system vulnerabilities and building security solutions. So Martin is going to introduce Christian, and we'll talk about this case study. Dr. Christian Roos, by the way, Associate Director for Adept Advisory. So please put your hands together. Welcome the gents on stage. Thank you very much.
Thanks everyone. It's great to have a customer up here doing a bit of a testimonial for us. Since we've built our MDR solution, we've relied a lot on that, and it's done us wonders. And I think it kind of illustrates what a great solution we've built here in South Africa. We've been working with Christian for quite some time now, and I'm going to let him just give him a little bit of a history of where he comes from. And then I'm going to chat to him about why he chose CyberFire. And as Stephen mentioned earlier, we keep saying CyberFire, so many of you may know it as NView, our MDR solution. So we've done a bit of a rebranding, but the brand is not foreign to us. We actually use the CyberFire brand internally in the business, just to make that clear. But yeah, I'm going to let Christian talk a little bit about, or probe him a little bit about why he chose and what is the decision criteria, and then maybe talk about how he finds the service, and then I'd like to finish off by just asking him about where he wants to see us go. So Christian, maybe you can do a quick introduction and tell us how you got into cybersecurity, and just a quick introduction to get the crowd to get to know you a bit better.
Oh, perfect, thanks. So I provide cybersecurity services for a company called Adept Advisory. So we're a company with delivering consulting services. So what is nice about what I do is we provide cybersecurity services to a number of companies, and so I have insight into the different technologies that they use at different companies, etc. So the first time where I've seen the NView services was at one of my medical hospital services companies. So at the time, and this is now a couple of years back, I'll just explain what I saw there. So I do lots of cybersecurity reviews, that's what I specialize in. And at this particular client, they were doing quite sophisticated things. For example, they were doing microsegmentation, with one of the technologies that they've very successfully implemented across their hospital operations. At the time, quite a few of my clients, they were running like SIEM solutions. So that was kind of the trend at the time. I saw quite a few clients, they've got lock analytics, in-house lock analytics and SIM. But there's always challenges around that, alert fatigue and log ingestion issues, etc., etc. So from an auditor perspective, I didn't see much success in those in-house solutions. At this medical client, the CISO there was actually a young but quite dynamic individual. So I was looking at his thought process in terms of all the security service solution that is implemented, and so he mentioned MDR. So that was okay. What is MDR? I was not familiar with that concept at the time. So they showed me the NView tickets, etc. Had a look at that process. I actually audited that process, and I could see it worked quite well. So obviously the SOC was outsourced as an outsourced service, and the MDR. So I actually looked it up on your website. So I read up on it, and what was quite interesting at the time is, wow, this is a South African company. With MDR services, so it's advanced SOC services. So that really fancied my interest, and so it was my first I'm not easily impressed, and the company was doing quite well from a cybersecurity perspective in protecting their environment, etc. So that was my first introduction to MDR. So later on, I had the opportunity at one of the big mining operations in South Africa to deliver first-line cybersecurity services. And they had a small SIEM solution in place within the organization. But so I looked at it and said, no, the log ingestion there is very limited. There's no value out of that data. There's nothing that we can get from it. So that's not going to work. We started off there with cybersecurity operations with a team of essentially 2 people. So okay, how are we going to implement a SOC here? That's impossible. We're not going to do that. If you think about ingesting all of the data, purchasing a SIEM solution, getting expertise in to manage that, and said no, and we had to basically from zero to, okay, we now need to protect this environment. We need to get something in quickly. So we can't wait to go through the whole procurement process and get a SIEM SOC going. No, it's outsourced that component. And so that's, immediately I thought about, your service, that it completely made sense to me. And I think what was useful at the time as well is you introduced me to other clients. I could speak to one of your other clients. I think it was an insurance company. So I spoke to them and they explained to me their experience. So that was very useful to get their insight in terms of how they perceived the service. So yeah, that's my experience with them.
Yeah, and I think that goes to my point earlier about us relying heavily on customer references, and we're very fortunate that we can do that. And so I think, the example that you paint now is you're quite fortunate that you were able to advise that company, because a lot of people might go into the journey of wanting to build a SOC, and we've seen that happen, procuring whether it's XDR or SIEM technologies and trying to put it together. But quite rightly, you illustrated there's a lot of, if you want it to be successful, there's a lot of groundbreaking stuff that needs to happen. You have to have resources. It's not just the technology that you can put down and just watch it work, like anything, but more so with this. I think there's a bit of a misconception. When you did some evaluation, did you look at other products, or what were the kind of key factors that you, when you kind of dove a little bit deeper into the solution, what were the key criteria that you were looking for?
So I think so obviously there are SOC services out there that you can outsource to a company that delivers a SOC service. But then the issue with that is whether they have got the expertise in-house to build the rule sets, etc., to fine-tune the alerting. As well as, I think what is very useful is you interacting with a human being. And so for our mining client, we sometimes get events. So I can immediately see, sometimes it's a medium ticket, but I can see this event is unique in our environment. There's trouble. This needs to be investigated. So I can go back to the analyst and say, look, please give me all of your data. Analyze this further. Or we could escalate, right? We could escalate to your senior analysts, and your senior analysts can get involved and do a deep dive into and actually help us, because it's all about understanding the event. We might not have the in-house expertise to analyze a particular event ticket, but that's where the additional human resources are quite helpful in analyzing the event and giving us that extra telemetry. So the extra data, so we often ask for extra data. So we see an event, give us all the data that you have for this particular event, and then help us to just correlate with our internal systems, etc. And then we've got full visibility of the event.
Yeah, I think when we had Knowles on the panel earlier as well, he made a point about the DSOC service doing something similar, bringing out the interesting alerts, and that's really what the CyberFire service is there to do. Of course, we still rely on you guys to close the alert. We need to contextual information. But I think a big value add is getting that information. When you ask for that information, you can get that quickly. You don't have to go digging through logs. And always, if you need to have an escalation process or a level 3 incident response, guys are there ready to help you. And if there are incidents, and we know that happens sometimes, we can really remediate them quickly. I want to go into a little bit about how you found the service, some of the things you really enjoyed about it. I mean, I know providing contextual information, but I think we've had quite a long journey, and I'd be keen to hear about some of the areas that really impressed you about the service. And to be frank, if there's some things that we could improve, we worked with you over time, and I think we have made some improvements, but we like to be candid about that and tell everyone that, we do make mistakes, but we continually work with our customers to improve on that. I don't know if you have to add anything onto that.
Yeah, absolutely. I think, I've learned a lot about, SOC services and MDR services over time. So it's quite useful to have, to have discussions with the senior leadership, etc. Have those frank discussions, and it's needed because we're protecting lives, etc. It's quite critical that we get it right. And the attackers are getting more sophisticated. So every day there's something new. So from a SOC event detection perspective, that's a challenge, and it's an ongoing challenge. So I'd rather partner with somebody that is willing to listen and give us opportunity to grow and add additional capability. We are now, we're implementing more advanced cybersecurity technologies. So there's new logs that needs to be ingested, right? And first, and we don't have the capability to go and analyze that data and say, is there actually something inside there that is meaningful to ingest? And I think, again, that's where we will leverage off your expertise to help us determine whether those log sources are actually useful to ingest. And then it also, as the new types of alerts are coming through, we're seeing, okay, here's a particular issue that we need to focus on. So it's also highlighting perhaps gaps, etc., that we should focus on.
Yeah, I think generally what I find with customers is when we first do a deployment, we have lots of traction, we uncover new things, and for someone like your customer that was onboarded for a while, you obviously helping them progress their cybersecurity maturity. That means taking on new technologies and putting new process in place, and we have to keep up with that. So we'd like to think that as a homegrown solution here in South Africa, we are able to make those decisions here and adapt to our customers' needs. We always look at that. Specifically, if you look at like cloud adoption in South Africa, our solution has been around before the adoption was as great as it is now, and we've had to adopt, learn how to ingest those logs and learn how to detect those type of incidents and help respond. Office 365 is a great example where we've had customers when we first started off that they had on-prem Exchange, and now it's not even a question. As soon as we onboard someone, we ingest their Office 365 Azure AWS logs. I'd like to maybe go into the value that you see in, you spoke about the third tier analysts, and I think there's a lot of value in the service that we provide there. Maybe you can illustrate some cases where that was useful or how that really helped you guys in terms of getting to the root cause of the incident. You don't have to give any specific, just generally.
Yeah, if I just quickly compare that with, the latest buzzword is XDR and all these solutions, but you're also looking for that advice, and you're just a call away from asking a question or clarifying a particular event, etc. So that's quite useful. I think that's from other engagements as well. You provide insight in terms of technologies, etc. So that's also quite useful. But not only that, it's also deep tech knowledge. And that's quite, because you work with all the different technologies. And that's very useful in terms of making decisions in terms of, okay, which way are we going with this now? So that human element, I think, is very important. And that's what you're going to lose possibly with the XDR side of things, as that human element. Then, just to reiterate, I mean, we've gone through the whole process, and we've seen the onboarding process, and it's quite a significant process. All the log ingestion, you've got all that expertise in terms of how to ingest the different logs, and you continue to develop that, which is very helpful. And then the other very important aspect is your agility. So because of the type of platform that you have, you can very easily build additional analytics in, etc. So your agility of your platform, I think, is quite key, and could be a differentiator within the market.
Yeah, I think most of our customers are doing pen tests on a regular basis, and we work with them, including your customer, in terms of when they do a pen test, see where there's gaps, see where we can improve detection, and we work with customers to bed that down. There's two other aspects I'd like to kind of ask you about, and that is what we call, in the service, we have something called defense threats and service improvements. And basically, we see security as a continual improvement, so we literally track any type of service improvements. And also, as part of the service, if our analysts pick up any weaknesses based on the alerts that they're seeing, they raise what they call a defense threat, and then they speak to customer success, and they eventually bring it up to you if it's deemed warranted. How have you found that? Is that something that you see value in?
Yeah, absolutely. So again, for my mining client, the type of ticket, one of the tickets, and the rating of those tickets are not even high. I think it's sometimes it's just a low ticket, but it's spot on, and it's on the email threat side, where you look at your other clients' data, and then you alert us of some threat from a particular email address, etc. I mean, the fidelity of that alert is actually so high that we could look at automating that just into our system. So that is one example of because you can see all your clients' data. That information is quite useful. So that's a good example. So yeah, that's the one example I could think of now.
Yeah, I think just to elaborate on that, essentially, we're in terms of email flow, we have customers' email flow, and we can see when phishing attacks are getting blocked and when they're getting through. So we can always advise customers, well, this phishing attack was blocked at other customers, but by yourself it's getting through. You might want to look at tweaking your policy in this way or another way, just to refine that. Cool. So I think maybe to end off, I'll just ask you about, is there anything you want to see us doing in the future? We were talking about AI. We are implementing those things. We tend to be a bit conservative in our approach, but we don't dismiss it at all. We're absolutely using it, and we feel we're using it in the right way. But besides AI, maybe it's AI specific, maybe it's something else. Is there anything else you would like to see from the service, or you feel that we can get better at?
Yeah, I think it would be useful again, and we've had this discussion before, is to look at the MITRE attack framework mapping, just to compare it with other competitors in the market, etc. So that would be useful. Then one of the challenges that I think that we face is we've got so many technologies now, and you've got to now kind of interface them, and so that's the other challenge. So any kind of services around that, might be useful.
Yeah. So just I'm not gonna defend myself on the MITRE too much. That is in progress. And just an interesting story around the MITRE. When we launched the service in 2017, I think it was around in 2018 that we had MITRE coverage for our detection rule set, and we actually included it in the monthly report. That was before you guys were a customer, and the customers looked at this and it was so new that they didn't know what MITRE was. It wasn't quite as popular as it is nowadays. So we canned it again, but you're absolutely right. Now it's kind of the norm. We need to get back on track, and we actually have a project on the way to get our detection rules categorized correctly. So we hope to see that in the next couple of months. And I think that kind of illustrates us just being agile and keeping up with customers' requirements in terms of what they want to do and what they want to achieve. I don't know how much time do we have? We have like 3 more minutes. I want to ask you one last question. In terms of response, we have a lot of customers that talk about automated response, and they have this tick box that says, "Does your solution do automated response?" We're quite cautious about that. Like as you can pick up, I'm a conservative fella. I don't want to switch off an endpoint without really knowing. What's your thoughts on us doing kind of automated response in terms of containment? Do you feel that that's something where you would go, or do you feel that the service works quite well the way it is?
Well, the email example was definitely there is an opportunity to automate. Every single ticket is spot on. So around phishing you, so that could be automated as one example. But I think you need to earn that trust, right? So the accuracy of the event ticket will have to be of such a nature that you can automate it, and that's tricky because we work with lots of false positives, or it's just normal business operations that's being detected, etc. So that's going to be challenging from an automation perspective. But I think there's always opportunity to automate. But that's not the first thing that I'm looking for. I know that there's a lot of automation that's happening in your back end, right? So that's taken care of. I don't have to worry about that. And then on top of that, you give the human element which brings in the additional the human the ability to spot something is always better than a AI algorithm. That's at the moment it is. So I would rather trust in that.
Yeah, no, and I think that's the sentiment amongst most customers. But for customers like yourselves, where we have a long-standing relationship, I think we're getting much closer to the time where we can actually automate some of the responses. So, yeah, Christian, thanks very much for joining me up here on the stage here, just to talk a little bit about CyberFire. Thanks, I really appreciate it. Thanks everyone.
Big thanks to Dr. Christian Riss and Martin Potgieter.